Hey, what's going on, everybody? Looks like we are up and running. See core break in the chat. Let me get everything loaded up and we'll go ahead and get started. All right. Should be good on audio. Let me know if you guys are having trouble hearing me. I see Core redeemed a hydrate and a stretch, testing out that new emote. Lad told me to put something in there to remind me to stretch every, 3 hours. Real quick, if I sound a little stuffier than usual today, when I woke up, my allergies decided to go ballistic. It might settle down as we start doing stuff, but I apologize if I sound kind of nasally. It's been hot here, and I think the pollen and whatnot is kicking up. So I was sneezing my head off this morning. I also see that Cora was shouting out the loading animation for the stream. Credits for that animation, of course, go to Wazzy of Team Toxicure. It is an amusing animation. All right. Of course, it is that time of year here anyhow. Yeah, where I live, there's a lot of trees, and depending on what type of tree pollen is in the air and how the weather is where I live, my allergies tend to kick in at different times and in different points in the year and reacting to different things. So I never have consistent allergies. Sometimes I have nothing. Sometimes it's bugging me in March. Sometimes it's bugging me in like September. But that's all right. I'll try not to let it distract me too much. And if I start sneezing, I'll try and hit mute as quick as I can so you guys aren't hearing disgusting face explosion sounds. Edward says, sounds like a good time to try out the cough snare. There you go. Sneeze BGM track incoming? We'll see. All right. Let me see, make sure this is all set up. So, what are we working on today? I did do some preparation before the stream yesterday as far as thinking about what I wanted to discuss. Since sometimes I wing it, sometimes I have sort of a rough kind of lesson plan in mind when it comes to these jam stream sessions. And so there are some things I wanted to talk about today that hopefully you folks will find interesting. Let's see, one sec. My loop station appears to have lost another foot. I have to buy some new non-stick feet for this thing. As a result, it is now going to slide around my desk. Hold on, let me try and fix that. Let me see if I can go grab something to put under this so that it doesn't slip. Give me one sec. All right, I think that'll do for now. What I did was I took one of my microfiber cloths. I just have it sitting on top of it, and now it won't really slide around. The problem with having the feet wear off is it makes the loop station uneven. So when I hit buttons or try and do stuff, it'll it'll rock and make noise. I don't want to do that when I'm recording stuff. So I think that'll work for now. So let's see. There's a couple things that I want to talk through on the sound theory discussion, but before that, we'll run through some patterns and do some warm-up stuff to kind of get the blood flowing and get everything warmed up. And from there, we'll move on into the discussion. So I think the best way to do it is just to run through some simple patterns like we've done before, to do basic instrument warm-up, snares. I was working on some bass stuff earlier and last night, so it may have put a bit of stress on my throat because I've been really drilling vibration bass. But if you guys can't hear any sort of raspiness in my voice, then it's fine. I'll just need to be a little bit careful that I don't wear my voice out at the beginning of the stream, since we got a lot of stuff to talk about, and we are going to be looking at some interesting things on the BGM side. I did have some plans for that too. So, that being said, I'm going to run through some kind of warm-up patterns, and then we will jump into everything. think it's going to take a little bit for my voice to warm up for the low end vibration based stuff. I've been trying to practice a little bit before the stream starts so it cuts down on the warm up time. The problem is the vibration bass itself is probably the most stressful of the outward basses that I do. And usually I have to be working at it for maybe around 5 to 10 minutes, doing it consistently. And then the throat sort of warms up enough that you can do the sound and it won't get a lot of distortion. And you could probably hear it when I was trying to do that last sequence and just push the bass as low as possible, because let me try and move my mic up a little. If I have my head tilted down, it sort of compacts the vocal cords a little bit, like if you have your chin down. So I try and have my head sort of neutral or pointed up a little bit because it makes it easier for my voice to resonate. But if we talk a little bit about how, in the past, we've specifically pointed out where in the throat the basses are coming from. For some reason, like the throat bass, the tighter one that's higher up in the vocal cords, that I could do all day, probably because it's the one I've been doing the longest. But the vibration bass, even though I know it pretty well and I've been trying to get much more refined at it, I can't just do it cold. It just takes more warm up, probably because of the stress. So we think about doing that drill in the last jam stream where we went from high to low, high to low. I've been trying to do that a little bit in practice just to try and get that warm up faster. So what I mean for that, and let's see if I can test my mic position here. Nope. It's going to fall over. Nope. If we start maybe around for the throat bass and try and drop as low in pitch as we can to vibration, we might go from to and the real challenge is trying to get the vibration to not warble so much that it's moving like in and out. You want it to be low and consistent, and then you're going to jump back up to the higher pitch note and then back down. So you're going to go up, down, and try and force your vocal cords to get used to adjusting to the position so that you can do them on demand. And that's the real challenge when it comes to the different types of basses and specifically moving between them. So if we were to take the practice example and put it into an actual application, if we're about here for a throat bass, so I'm going to just try and bounce between the two and we'll see if it works. So we go You can even put a beat with it so it doesn't sound like you're just doing tones. So you could do something like And so that's what I've been trying to do lately in practice to get better at transitioning between the different types of bass, since their range and kind of where they fall on the note scale is strictly kind of restricted to the different types. In other words, the mid to upper range distorted basses for throat kind of fall within that certain range, and then once I get to a certain low point, I have to switch to vibration in order to push the sound lower. And so you might be doing something that has high melodies or notes, but you have to drop into something low for either like a real heavy bass hit, or if you're doing a drop. And if you don't have the ability to transition to the techniques that are going to give you access to the lower range, then it's going to be much harder. And so putting all that together is what I've been trying to get better at when it comes to doing the sounds on demand. But like a lot of beatboxing instructors say when it comes to the basses are developing sounds. So you learn the technique for them, and most people start with throat bass because it's the least complex. It's tricky to learn, but compared to some of the other ones, it's not that bad. And once you have the technique for throat bass, it teaches you about throat positioning and how to get that sound to come out. And then you kind of apply that to some of the later ones, like vibration bass, where you're dropping it lower in the vocal cords. But the point of calling these sounds developing is you learn the technique and it's going to sound really messy and not clean. It's going to hurt your throat. But the more you work at it, and this is what we've always talked about on these streams when it comes to practice, the more you work at it and refine your technique and just condition your throat muscles and everything, the better the sound will get over time. And you will notice. Maybe not on a day-to-day basis if you're just starting out in beatboxing, but on a month-to-month or even week-to-week, depending on the type of sound, the more you practice at it, the more you'll see small improvements. And then if you were to look back over the course of maybe a year, you might say, oh, I remember when I started learning throat bass at the beginning of the year, and it was really hard. I couldn't do it for more than 5 minutes, and it was really messy. But now that I've been practicing it for a year, I could tell how much better it sounds and how much easier it is to do. And I know people tend to get discouraged when they're practicing and they don't feel like they're improving or see improvement. But take it from me as someone who learned from the ground up. If you just keep grinding away at learning techniques and refining things, you will see progress, but you have to keep practicing. A lot of instructors say, you can practice, but you have to be diligent in your practice. And I'm not saying spending 10 hours a day is necessary, but you have to devote consistent time to drilling and putting all the different parts of your voice and mouth anatomy through the conditioning. If you just practice, 30 minutes a week, the rate of improvement you're going to see is going to be a much flatter curve than if you're doing maybe 1 to 2 hours a day of focused practice on specific techniques. And if you do that, then you'll see much more improvement faster. Eventually you'll kind of plateau, but you will see progress faster if you do that versus just, kind of casually or whenever it's convenient saying, oh, I'm just going to practice here or there. And so part of the challenge is, one, being diligent, like any sort of skill, be it a sport, an art, anything. You have to practice consistently and kind of force yourself to allocate that time and spend grinding in order to get better. And then tracking progress, you will see that improvement over time. I know it probably doesn't mean much to hear from me, but I experienced that firsthand. So it's just one thing out there I like to tell people. So as far as the sound theory discussion, let me switch my caption up here. I'm just going to call this sound theory. So what we've always done on these jam streams is we've chunked out a little bit of time to talk about techniques, a little bit semi-tutorial, or just breaking down things in beatboxing that I feel like are interesting to discuss with people that are hanging out here. Be they people who are interested in beatboxing or just learning, or even just have never heard people kind of break down different parts of how beatboxing works. So today, rather than focus on instruments or specific techniques, because there's nothing really that I'm working on at the moment that's super noteworthy. The bass training has been ongoing, and it's always going to be something I'm working on. But I don't have much to really report as far as progress and the stuff I'm working on. Instead, I wanted to revisit a topic we haven't talked about here on these streams in a long time. I know because it's probably been 5 or 6 jam streams since it came up last. But that's the idea of construction. And specifically, I want to spend some time today talking about the concepts of pattern construction and routine construction. And the two things go hand in hand. And you've heard me mention these before, so it's not exactly going to be a new topic. But when it comes to applying beatbox sounds, things you learn. Obviously, the first thing to learn is technique. You learn technique, you practice with technique, you get better, you're able to do sounds on demand, and you get a grasp of how they work. The next step is fitting them together into beats and not just being able to do them on their own or in a vacuum. And so that is pattern construction. And the whole concept of pattern construction isn't anything really complex. It's not anything nebulous when it comes to beatboxing. It's similar to any other type of music form. But the thing that's tricky about pattern construction is you have to be careful that you don't kind of pigeonhole yourself into a similar style or tempo or genre or just overall one dimension when it comes to creating beats. And that's difficult for everybody. It's difficult for the people learning, it's difficult for the pros, and everybody in between when it comes to how you want to actually apply all these techniques that you're putting together to create sounds that you're going to either perform or turn into songs or anything. And it's all building this database of knowledge in your brain. So if, like we talked about before, some random person you're talking to in a conversation says, "Hey, I heard you can beatbox. Bust something out for us right now." You have two options. You can either freestyle something, and if you practice a lot of freestyling and just putting things together on the fly, you can do that. A lot of people do that, and they're really good at it. Or you can cycle through the database of things that you've already constructed that you know and practice, and you can bust that out instead and say, okay, I'm going to go to beat number 1 in my brain, whatever, or maybe you give it a name, and I'm going to do that. Because if you don't have that knowledge on one of those two paths, if someone says bust out something, you won't have anything on hand, especially if you can't freestyle. And freestyling is something maybe we'll talk about in another session. That's not something I feel super qualified to speak on, but that primarily just comes from thinking on your feet. So as far as building the database of knowledge in your brain, where it starts is pattern construction. And so pattern construction is just sequences of sounds that are put together in either small or large chunks that form the backbone or skeleton of a beat. And the distinction between patterns and routines we'll sort of talk about off and on, but the big thing to remember is patterns tend to be smaller chunks and snippets of things that you can plug and play and stick together, and routines are an organized collection of patterns that are structured into more of a performed song. And that's not a hard and fast definition, but it's the best way for me to tell them apart. So a pattern might be something as simple as just a percussion line for a rhythm and then playing around with a bass. So for example, if we were to do something really, really simple, we might have a pattern that just sounds like and just the rhythm of hats, kicks, snares, that's your pattern. And you can do things like adjust the pattern by maybe switching up the instrumentation a little bit, adding in fills in between measures, or doing something that's going to change it as you sort of string it together. Or you could just do the same measure over and over and over, and it's just a continuous beat. Where that fits into routines is maybe you want to have an organized song that uses that beat, but instead of just starting with the beat and the rhythm, you might do like a lead-in or an intro that's going to start the song, and then maybe a build-up or something else that's going to lead into how you apply the pattern. So the main difference, again, going back to the explanation, is a pattern is just the noises and things that fit together into the sound set, whatever it is, be it a rhythm, melody, anything else that's arranged in a way that's going to be reoccurring or non-reoccurring, that's your pattern. The routine is the structure of the overall combination of everything. Patterns, intros, outros, breakdowns, everything in an organized format that's going to form the quote unquote full song. To me, that's how you define a routine. And so I wanted to talk a little bit today on the stream with some ideas and some just sort of things that I kind of learned along the way when I was getting into beatboxing. Because again, I'm not a pro, but part of the fun of taking all the things you learn is figuring out a way to turn that into something that's more cohesive, that can be added to your database of knowledge to potentially use in a setting, be it a public setting, anything. And it's just one of the things that you have to reflect, what you're doing as a beatboxer. And so my strategy when it comes to pattern construction first. So we'll start in the micro and then work towards the macro. For patterns, the first thing that I think about is what's the genre of music? And that kind of feeds into the routine, but when you're trying to think of rhythms, and I always start with rhythms unless a melody just pops in my head. I'm not really a melodic beatboxer, but genre of music first usually drives the tempo, rhythm, and instruments that I want to use. So if we said, let's say we wanted to create a routine that's a dubstep routine. So we said, okay, we want to do something that's within the genre of dubstep. So what kind of components of the overall song are we going to create that's going to give us a dubstep sound? And again, for me, I go to the rhythm, the drums, and I say, okay, what tempo do I want? There is a specific dubstep tempo. Someone who knows music notation better than me could probably tell you what it is. It tends to be slower, and I think it's 4. But the tempo is specifically what I'm talking about as opposed to the time signature. And so dubstep tends to have a more slower, like alternating offbeat type sound as opposed to like a constant 4/4, like a house song or a techno song or dance specifically, where it's like that might be something more like an EDM or club track. Dubstep is much slower and has what sounds like to me kind of a more staggered rhythm. So if we were to compare it to actual beats, it's probably easier for me to explain. You might have like a and that might be like a dance beat. You have that kind of driving constant tempo, but dubstep is going to be a little bit more slower and kind of more plodding. So instead of the that you have for dance beat, it might be something like that's like my standard stereotypical dubstep beat that I always go to just to kind of set the tempo and style in my head. It's not the be all end all when it comes to dubstep. There's a lot of variety, obviously, but that if I'm going to go with that type of tempo and sound, what I'm thinking about in my head is, okay, what is my instrumentation going to be? Do I want regular hats? Do I want to use a PF snare, which is pretty much my go-to depending on the type of dubstep sound? How fast do I want that tempo to be? And so I'll play around with the different components of the rhythm itself. And for the sake of the exercise, maybe we can use that example for the rhythm that I gave. That way it's just there and we can use it. And so once I figured that out, I said, okay, if we're going to go with a type of rhythm, that's going to be the main, percussion line of the track for constructing it track by track. And so once I have that figured out, the next thing I think about is what's the structure going to be? Is this going to be something where we are going straight into the rhythm and then maybe bringing in bass? Is the bass going to be starting with the rhythm, or are we going to be doing a lead in? So before we get to the whole idea of the routine in general, it's kind of like, what are the main sections of the song that you want that are going to affect the patterns you use? So thinking about the most logical way to explain what I'm talking about, usually when you're doing dubstep type stuff, you have really kind of heavy, low bass drops. It's the genre of music almost synonymous now with a bass drop, a real heavy type sound. So if you're going to do that, you have a couple different options. Again, depending on how you want to set the song structure, you can either have your rhythm lead in, you can have it come in after the rhythm is established, or you can build up to a drop. Hey, Med's here. What's up, Med? Welcome to the jam stream. I hope your Sunday is going well. And Core Break is back. Welcome back. We are discussing beatbox pattern and routine construction theory. Med says, I'm sleeping today, first time in my own flat. Ah, I see. Well, I hope you're enjoying living in the solo life, I guess. Proper adulting is always good. And Edward says, hi back, I'm dad. There it is. Our resident dad joke expert. Of course says, hi dad, I'm gay. All right, let me adjust my volume a little bit more here. Med says it's weird to live alone. Yeah, it's a little bit weird in the beginning, but you'll get used to it. And then eventually, once you figure out your process and you get used to it, then it'll seem normal. I say that as a person who lives alone. And I've lived alone for a long time. I haven't had roommates in quite a while. So, going back to the concepts of sound pattern routine construction. Oh, and Iconic is swinging by. Iconic says, hi Raku, can't stay at the moment, but hope you have a great jam stream. Much love, always cheering you on. Thanks, Iconic. Thanks for stopping by and saying what's up. I hope your Sunday is awesome. So going back to the idea of sound pattern and routine construction, we are doing, for example purposes, a dubstep-ish type of style, genre-wise. So like I mentioned, establishing the rhythm and the sort of tempo and tone of the song is kind of the first step. So let's see, working through an actual example, the one that we were talking about was the real simple, and again, to answer Med's question, the genre or music style or I say genre specifically is the first thing to figure out, at least for me, and the one we're doing in the example is a dubstep style. So the rhythm that I talked about to set sort of the example here would be a slower tempo rhythm for dubstep, and it sounds like and that's just the percussion line, right? So getting the pattern for the rhythm, because we're talking about patterns as it leads into routines, the pattern is the drum line. That's the first thing we figured out. We say, okay, that's going to be the rhythm. And then the next thing to consider is the structure. How do we want to fit the whole song together when it comes to a rhythm? And then ultimately bringing in things like bass, drops, and all that stuff. Matt says, you're better than my music teacher. Thanks for explaining. Oh, I try. I'm not a music teacher, but I've tried to explain my thought process when it comes to beatboxing techniques, so it makes sense for people who might be interested in learning or just curious how the stuff works. I'm not a pro, again. I'll always say that I'm not a pro or a teacher, but I like explaining things. So this is kind of like my way of explaining the process to folks who've just never seen beatboxing before. So we have genre, we have basic rhythm, now we have to decide structure. And so you could do a couple different things. You can do something like a bass rhythm set of measures with just the drums. And then from there, you could stop and say, all right, from there, I'm going to bring in a little bit of bass on its own with no rhythm and do something like a lead up to a drop. Or I want to go straight from the rhythm to a lead up to a drop. And so that's where you start playing around. Okay, how do I want the song to sound? Do I want it to get right into a build up to go into a drop? Do I want it to have sort of a slow lead in and then a build up to a drop? And that's where you kind of figure out, how do I want the song and routine to feel overall. And so let's play around with some options. Okay, I've been talking for like 5 minutes, but I haven't actually done anything. So we have a couple ways we can approach it. We could do something like the first example, where the entire first section is rhythm, everything drops out, you have a bass by itself, and it leads into a drop. So I guess what the best way to illustrate it is just to do it and then talk through what I did. So this will be example 1. And we might just start with the rhythm, and it would go... So to walk back through the entire sequence of patterns, I wouldn't call that an entire routine. We started with just the rhythm for a little bit, for several measures, and then everything drops out, and then you have a couple of the bass tones by themselves with no rhythm, and the notes order doesn't really matter for this. If I had it written down, then I'd be able to do it consistently. But you notice how everything drops out, and you have a couple measures of just bass tones, and they move around in a melody for a bit, and then from there they go straight into the build up to the drop, where you have the bass notes combining with a kick, and then things start ramping up, and then you have a sequence or a fill, and then it leads straight into the drop, and then the bass comes in for the drop with the beat. Med says, do you even breathe? I've been questioning that the whole time. Oh yeah, part of the challenge of beatboxing is learning when to breathe. And usually, I don't know the technique behind it because no one's ever explained it to me. But what I try and do is structure the breaths that are structured around the measures. So it's not like you're doing like a bass line and having to breathe in the middle. You could do it that way, but it tends to break up what you're doing. So the trick is, 1, training your lungs so that you have more air on demand. And 2, learning when to breathe and when to sort of break up what you're doing. And if you listen to routines and things that I'm doing live, if you listen real closely, you'll be able to hear when I breathe, because I'll have to stop. I don't know how to do circular breathing. But if we talk about the sort of structure of what we did for that first example, again, we went rhythm, we went empty bass lead up, and then the actual build up, then we went drop. Okay. Course says that last beatboxing segment went really well with the part I was watching. Okay. Oh, with the part of JoJo's Bizarre Adventure I was watching. Nice. thematic resonance. You'll love to see it. So again, first example, and I'm going to try and do the same beats, but they're probably going to be note-wise a little bit different because I don't have this stuff written down in front of me. But our first example was rhythm, bass, lead up, drop. Chorus says, I'm rewatching Battle Tendency. Oh, nice. Part 2. Part 2's fun. Good old Joseph. And so what I want to do here is I want to flip up the order and formula of the mini routine to kind of illustrate what I'm talking about when it comes to choosing where to put your different components and changing the overall feel of the song. And Med says, I have perfect pitch and I'm still dumb to hear and know what's good and bad. I wish I had perfect pitch. That is a very rare trait. But that is cool. It's helpful for musicians. So let's try and flip the formula around. What I'll do is I will switch the rhythm and the order of everything, and then I'll talk through why it's different from the first one I did. All right? So we're going to be doing a same style song, dubstep-ish type song with a bass drop, but we're going to do it in a different order so you can tell how the song feel sort of changes. So I'll just run through it real quick, and then I will go back and talk through the slight tweaks and changes and how it changes the feel of the song. So real quick, let's see. Med says, you don't, perfect pitch is so annoying sometimes. I've heard that too. I've heard that it's kind of annoying. And then Med says, why are you so good? How long have you been learning that? Well, I've been doing beatboxing for about 3 years now. I'm not a music theory person. Like, I wasn't trained classically in music. I did do music a long, long time ago. Edward says, Raku can beatbox like he does because he learned hamon. Well, we were talking about breathing. Hamon is tied to breathing. So I should probably try and see if that'll enable me to learn the technique. All right. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to do a second version of the mini routine and explain the difference. All right. So let's see. All right, Med says, what is hamon? Hamon is a technique from JoJo. It's a type of like energy thing. Of course, all this hamon, I don't need a breather is my favorite line from the Joestar rap. Nice. Med says, okay, I probably finally watched JoJo. I love JoJo. I need to finish watching part 5 and then I can watch part 6. Course says, it's very good, though part 3 is boring and interesting at the same time. I like part 3. It has a really interesting series of characters and stuff. That's the one that got me hooked. Part 1 is a setup and I think is alright. It's not the most interesting to me. Part 2 ramps up pretty nicely and gets you a pretty good idea of the craziness in JoJo, and then part 3 it kind of builds off of that, and then it really sets the stage for the later ones. But it kind of depends on style and kind of the tone of the series, since each part has a different sort of tone and vibe to it. But yeah, JoJo's great. It's one of my favorite franchises. So if we go back to our example of constructing the mini routine, the main difference is we started with the bass. We started with the bass by itself with a couple tones, and then we bring in kicks to sort of accentuate the bass. And then after we do a couple note progressions with the bass, then we go straight into the lead up and then the drop. And then after the drop, we have a couple of variations on the low bass and everything as it comes in and starts to build on that sort of heavy sound. So the difference from the first example that starts with the rhythm for several measures is we established the bass up front. And so the song has a more kind of immediate build up to me, because you're starting and you're forcing the listener to pay attention to the bass. And then immediately you're leading up into the build up, then the drop, and then you're kind of moving with the idea of the really heavy sound. Then you can move into another drop, and they switch up how the bass drops the second time, and you can do something like that. And Med says, I'm gonna watch after my exam phase. That's a good idea. JoJo's an investment. Make sure you're not having competing priorities. So anyway, the whole idea of taking pattern construction and then moving things around really drives how you want the songs or sounds to feel to the listener. And part of the fun of beatboxing is playing around with different things and seeing what sounds good to you and how you want to actually structure your performed stuff when it comes to the actual execution. So we get 2 examples of the same type of song. Again, the notes were slightly different because I don't have it written down, but 2 very different feels, right? You have a longer lead in and then a build up later, and then a real upfront, pretty much non-existent lead in to a build up and a drop. And again, it just depends on what you want to do. And the flexibility of how you move things around and plug and play is the fun of creating routines and patterns. And again, you start looking at things from a composition perspective, and maybe you want to change up the genre or tempo mid song. You can do that too. You have pretty much free reign to do whatever you want with the song and then see what it sounds like. Med says, there's so many options in beatboxing I didn't know. Yeah, that's true. One thing I realized when I started learning, I always thought it was, just like hip hop type stuff, but in reality, it's any genre of music you can think of that fits into a song format. Core says, I gotta go to sleep. All right. Good night, Core. Get some rest. Thanks for stopping by and hanging out with us on the Jam stream today. And I will catch you later. So again, the main driving factor behind wanting to talk about this on stream today is just giving some insight into how, at least I, as a beatboxer, take all these different things that, I practice and I learn, and trying to put it into something that's going to be more cohesive and function more like songwriting. Med says, once I actually heard classical music with beatboxing, I was so shocked. Yeah, there are people who play instruments and beatbox at the same time. If I knew how to play piano, I would totally do that. Or like a wind instrument. I've seen this one guy who does like a wood flute type sound, and he beatboxes at the same time. It's nutty. But the whole idea that it's just percussion is pretty much an outdated philosophy when it comes to beatboxing. If you spend enough time practicing and learning, you have the whole sound set, as it were, and instrument set at your disposal. Maybe one thing we can look at when we get into BGM creation is the non-percussion type of instruments that you have with beatboxing, and we could maybe put that into practice with the stuff I want to do with BGM. And I have some interesting ideas, but we'll transition over to that in a few minutes. But like one example is we talk a lot about basses, we talk a lot about rhythmic sounds or things like technicality, but there's also different things for melody-driven instruments in beatboxing. My favorite, and probably the one I'm most consistent with, is the trumpet. And it's not because I played trumpet a long time ago, it's just the one that seems to come out the easiest for me. So we're going to take this, I have an idea how I want to implement this in the actual BGM. But the trumpet sounds like, and I've talked a little bit about how to do that one before. It's pretty simple, actually. You just create a small opening on the corner of your mouth, very small, and you just sing a note directly through that, and the tighter you close that opening, the more it gets a little bit of resonance and buzzing, and that's how it sounds, like that kind of brassy noise, as opposed to just going, you're forcing the sound through a small opening, and that's what's causing it to sound more like a horn, and that's how you get the, that's a Swiss beatbox melody, and then it's just doing like a sung note, keeping your mouth in that position, and then you can use your tongue to break up the flow of the notes, and that's how you're getting different notes to come out. My range is good on the high and medium side for a trumpet sound, but low is much more difficult for me for some reason. And that's one thing I want to practice with, but I don't use the trumpet a lot. I have used it in one of my BGM tracks. It's Somber Tone, which is one of my favorites. Med says, I'm from a musician family, so I hear a trumpet often, and since I'm sleepy, it sounds realistic. Though it's more of a wing horn, or I don't know what it's called. My trumpet sounds like a cornet. Maybe kind of like a flugelhorn. It's because it's a bit more muted, and because I'm not using my teeth. The other technique that I don't use for doing a trumpet or a saxophone sound involves putting your teeth on your lower lip and forcing the sound out that way, and it would sound like, mine doesn't sound that good because I don't practice it that way, but you do that, and because your teeth are rattling, it gives it more of a brassy sound. But if you're doing it the way I do it on the corner of my mouth, you're getting more of a muted sound like a cornet, or maybe like a flugel or French horn, and that's why it sounds a bit more mellow instead of like really kind of sharp and brassy. Edward says, it's fun seeing Med surprised by stuff. Yeah, hopefully it's interesting. Again, I love explaining things to people, and it's always fun when people are interested in learning. Matt says, I'm sorry, I'm not used to this. You don't have to apologize. It's fine. Again, I just like explaining things to people, and if you find it interesting, great. If you don't, that's cool. If you decide you want to learn beatboxing, even better. If not, I'm just here to kind of vibe and listen to me talk about something. That's fine too. So don't worry. I think most people, including myself, when I first started learning about the music form for beatboxing, I was like, wow, it's a very, very in-depth art form. It's not just funny mouth noises making, percussion sounds. There's so many techniques, styles, and things. It's whatever you want to make it, and it's really fascinating. Med says, I grew up with piano, French horn, and such. I started listening to different stuff from classical since 2 years old. Ah, that's cool. So you have a musical background. So some of the stuff I do here is probably going to be offensive because I'm not a classically trained musician. I do things a lot of the time by ear and how things sound to me. And it's not based on theory, music theory. And that's fine. Med says, hip-hop beatboxing that I didn't know existed for so long. Yeah, that's fair. Beatboxing was invented in the 80s, and it came out of the American hip-hop culture. You had the old school folks like Dougie Fresh, the Fat Boys, Rozelle, a lot of people who came up in the scene in the 80s, and it sort of got popularized in the hip-hop culture and then slowly started to build into mainstream. And then a community started forming around beatboxing with things like competitions, battles. And then from there, it went worldwide. And now you have beatboxing communities all over the world. And with the internet, the ability to communicate information and how to learn is so easy and accessible. Now you have people in every country of the world, including small kids that are, an eighth of my age, learning how to do crazy complex techniques at a young age. And these kids are going to be the pillars of the community later, because by the time they are 20, they're going to be miles ahead of the pros who have been doing it for like 20 years. Med says yes, and it's a curse. If my dad knew I listened to this, he would make my head less. So I'm not going to soapbox too much on the whole idea of musical legitimacy, but music to me is pretty much whatever you make it, as long as it's something that you create and express. It doesn't have to be classical. It doesn't have to be anything complex. And I've heard people say beatboxing isn't real music. People that say that have never heard actual beatboxing. They only know what they stereotypically think in their heads. Because, again, I'm not a classically trained musician. I like to think some of the things we do here on these streams could be considered music. But honestly, I don't really care if people don't agree. I just think it's kind of discouraging when someone says, oh, don't waste your time with beatboxing. It's not real music. Learn piano. To me, that's kind of counterproductive. Before there were actual instruments, people banged on rocks and logs, and that was music. But, it is what it is. Edward says, 6 minutes, Dougie Fresh, you're on. If you've never seen Dougie Fresh, one of the OG originators of beatboxing culture, if you've never seen him perform, I recommend checking out some videos. The dude's a maniac. He's incredibly talented and helped lay the groundwork for the stuff we're talking about today. Edward says, Raku is contraband. Look, man, I'm not saying we got to start a revolution. I just don't like the idea of questioning legitimacy of things just because you don't like it or understand it. Med says, there is this one basic sound, and I got so angry at people who did that because they couldn't do it right. What sound is that? Feel free to enlighten the chat. Oh, Red Dragon's here. What's up, Red Dragon? I see you have redeemed a small Raku. So let me switch over to loop station BGM mode so I can sit down, and then I'll turn that on for you. So let me grab my chair. All right. And I will go over to VTube Studio and fix this. There. It'll look like I'm standing up to the mic. I gotta turn the timer on. Let's see if I remember to turn it off this time. Let me set this up real quick. And then we should be good. I will keep an eye on everything else as we proceed here. Let's see. Med says, I don't know how to describe it. BTZ, CTZ. I only know the sound in German, but it wouldn't help you. Edward says the boots and cats sound. I guess it would depend on what that sound is supposed to be. Are you talking about like a beatboxing type sound that people were talking about, or is it something else from like music theory? That'd be my question. All right. Red Dragon says, random question, why not have two VTube avatars, one big, one small, so you can switch between them? I could do that, but the reality is, depending on what layout I'm using, I tend to use the small Raku and put my avatar in different spots. So even if I had two different ones, I'd have to rescale it anyway, so it's fine. Med says, I only know it in German, but Das ist Katz is in German. I don't know in English. I see. I probably butchered that. I can't speak German at all. But that is interesting. All right. Let me change the now practicing to BGM brainstorming. And this will be the rest of our stream today. That says you pronounced it right. Okay, my terrible German was close enough. Red Dragon says it means, but this is cat. Yeah, I assume that's what it meant, but as far as what it means, like musically, that's what Med's talking about. All right, let me clear off everything on this track, and I will explain what we're going to be doing today. We'll save a blank version of this. And so the first thing I want to do, so we're going to take a trip back into the past for a little bit. For those who have been following my work since I started on YouTube, Edward, namely, I think is one of the most OGs. I want to do a remix project because one thing I've been doing is trying to figure out how to get my BGM tracks on Spotify. And that's something I might try and do by the end of the year, depending on what's involved. But I want to go back to the first two BGM tracks I ever made, and I want to remix them here on the Loop Station. And the reason I want to do that is because I created those two tracks before I had a Loop Station, and I did that by simply beatboxing the sections of the song, recording them, and then really terribly editing them together into a string and then creating the whole song that way. I didn't have individual tracks that I looped and could manipulate because, again, I didn't have a Loop Station. And so the first song I want to go back to and remix here on the Loop Station is the very first one I made, Under the Ground. And I'll play it for you folks first. You've probably heard it on stream before, but I'm going to play it, and then we're going to recreate the song on the Loop Station, and then we're going to remix it and create a more up-to-date sort of version 2 for this original track. And I've been wanting to do this for a while. I just kept forgetting to make it part of our jam stream agenda. So let me play the song, and then we will start plugging different things into the Loop Station and go from there. I see Med is also discussing pronouns. Yeah, I think it came up yesterday, but feel free to mention to everyone in chat, Med, what pronouns he wants people to use for everyone here, and then we can make sure we follow that in the future. All right, let me do this. Okay, so I'm going to play Under the Ground, and I might have to tweak the volume so you folks can hear it because the track level audio is kind of low. So we're going to go here. Let me see. Oh, is it that low? I can't hear it because it's not coming through my headphones. Weird that I can't hear the desktop audio. Normally it plays through my headphones. Why is that? That's why. I can hear it now. All right. So Edward says it's playing. It's kind of quiet. Yeah, the track overall is got a low volume. Between that and the quality not being super great because of how I recorded it, that's the main reason why I wanted to go back and remix this one today. We'll put this back. Okay, I think we got the pronouns things figured out. I think. Oh, I see what happened. All right, as long as we're good, folks, that's all that matters. All right. So, how do we want to structure this one? So again, when I did Under the Ground the first time, a long time ago, I didn't have access to the loop, and I did each section and then just recorded it and then edited it all together. And that's why it doesn't sound too great. The audio's a little scuffed, and I tried to sync up the measures and time signatures consistently, but I had to do it basically by eye and ear. So instead of doing that, we're going to create all the different components of the track, and we're going to do it like we've done on all the other BGM tracks here, and then maybe remix the structure and where the song goes. So first thing we need to do is establish the rhythm, right? So I think the best way to do it would be to do two bar repeat on the rhythm, and then let's see, we have 5 total tracks. We could do kicks, snares on one, and do hi-hats on another. That way we can turn them on and off, and like have the hats cut out, or have the rhythm cut out and just have hats. Because right now it's all layered together in the original BGM track. So it sounds like something like that. And obviously the hats have to cut out whenever I'm doing a snare, because I can't do a snare and a hat at the same time. It's physically impossible. Now we can have it all layered together so that it doesn't cut out. So let's do the kick and snare rhythm first. So I'm going to try and do it component by component instead of all at once. So if we set the BPM by doing the kicks, we capture 2 measures, and then we layer in the snares with overdub, and then we put hats on another track. Let's see if we can do that first. So what I envision in my head is doing just the capture that, and then we go in and overdub the snares, and then maybe we double up and we build out with like a heavier, like maybe throat kick under the regular kick to give it more of a lower end, like we've done. Edward says it's only impossible if you think it is. Rakudono. That's true, but physical anatomy has its limitations. Matt says, real quick question, how long do you think you're going to stream today? I don't know. In fact, let me check something, and I might be able to give you a better answer. I am waiting on some friends of mine. I will see later, since my schedule depends on their availability. I will be streaming for at least another hour or so, maybe another hour and a half. It's going to depend on how long it takes us to do these BGM tracks, but at least another hour, maybe hour and a half. Feel free to dip and head off to other things if you got stuff that you need to do. I always tell people, don't worry about having to watch the streams if you have competing priorities. the VODs for the stream after we're done will always be on the Twitch channel for X amount of days, and the full archive of everything will always be uploaded to my YouTube channel, which is linked on my channel page here, and those will be there for eternity unless I'm doing something that gets me copyright struck, at which point I can't upload the archives. But every jam stream for beatboxing we've ever done is on my YouTube channel. It's my archive / non-Twitch channel, and so all the stuff goes there. So if you ever miss anything or want to see what we talked about, or revisit a moment from the streams, and the Twitch VOD's gone, then you can find it on YouTube along with all the other stuff I've done. Med says, "Nah, it's middle of the night. I don't have anything to do." Well, that's fair, but again, feel free to hang out and vibe as long as you want. All right, so I'm gonna record the kick line first. We'll do 2 measures, and then let's try and put the snares and slot everything in and see what happens. So we want, I don't need reverb on the kicks. So let's try and capture that. Okay, I think that's looping cleanly. I had to make sure the end of it syncs up so it loops cleanly, but what we can do is try and get the snares. We overdub on the same track. Again, we have 5 total loop tracks, and we can layer on 1 additional one as much as we want, as far as I know. So I'm going to try and put the snare in, and we're going to do PF snares. So let's see if we can do that. Actually, that I know is not going to sound good. Oh, okay. I thought I missed it. Hey, Sour Lad's here. What's up, Sour Lad? Welcome to the jam stream. We are working on BGM creation. I hope you're having a good Sunday. Okay, I need to keep an eye on the playback. Sorry if that was really loud. Okay, so here's our bass rhythm. Now, we could try and overdub a throat kick on top of the regular one to give it more punch. And I gotta remember, it's 2 repeat. So if I miss one, then I have to overdub it again. Let's see if we can do that. That is definitely too loud. Edwards asked, did the song have the 4th snare? I don't think so. It could have. I did a pretty kind of symmetrical sounding beat. It might have, but it definitely wasn't clean. So I'd rather have it have 4 snares. Actually, technically it's 2. 1 repeat. Yeah, it's two snares. It's just you're hearing it repeat twice. Med asks, what's the fourth snare? So if we listen, 1, 2, 3, 4. 4 snares in the total repeat. Yeah. There's 4 of them. I do want it to sound like that because the way I did it in the original, it was a little inconsistent, and then I actually had the snare drop out for a section. That I don't know how I'm going to do here because we're putting it all in the same track, but it's going to sound more consistent and clean if we do it that way. So let me put a hat run, hi-hats over this. So 8th notes, and then we will see how that syncs up. So start this. Of course, it's off beat. I'm going to do it this way. I think I'm doing that too fast. Actually, I don't know if 8th notes works with the way that's staggered. That actually sounds weird to me. Because the original had the hats cutting in and out because of the snare. Yeah, like Med's saying, the rhythm sounds off, and I wonder if it's because the actual percussion line is staggered. Let me try something. I'm gonna do the whole rhythm. I'm gonna do this on a separate track, and we can always erase the other one if we like it better. Actually, I'm just gonna start over. Let's try and record a different way. I'm gonna do the kicks and the snares at the same time. So instead of doing kick, like double kick, whatever, and then put the snare, I'm gonna do the. I'm gonna do that at once, and then that's gonna be the loop since that part doesn't change, and then we'll figure out the hats. Edward says maybe try doing them in 3s. Yeah, we can try and do like triplets too. But let me redo the beat, and it should give us a cleaner loop instead of overdubbing it. So let me try that first. So it's gonna go. I should do 1 repeat. We'll see if that works better. It's going to be a little bit slower. Okay, get to loop a little bit better. 1, 2, 3. Drop the fader down on this a little bit. I see Mad redeemed a hydrate. All right, grab some water. Okay, so I think the rhythm part is fine, the way it's looping. Now, for the hats. I'm trying to think about staggering versus a straight line, because I think the straight line, like Med said, sounds like it's really weird and off. So let's see. Maybe having it start and stop. So like Matt says I found the mistake. Okay, if you can describe it, I'll try and translate it to the song. Again, I don't know music notation too well, but I'll do my best if you can describe what you think sounds like it needs to be fixed. We could try and do like individual notes too, and then plug things in between. So let's see. Yeah, I was trying to match the hi-hats to the kicks. I wonder what that sounds like. Let's try it. Edward says didn't have a metronome. The loop station does, I just don't know how to use it. Ned says, you made 4 fast things. The 4th sounded like a finish, but the new start sounds like a 1 again. Is this 4/4? I don't. This is kind of an unusual time signature, I think, just because of the rhythm. I think you're right in that the way it's structured makes it start and stop on weird beats. It's the way I created the rhythm, which is fine. We're just gonna have to work around it. I think we're not going to be able to do a straight line because the song, the tempo is not a straight line. So let's see. Med says you made 1, 2, 3, 4, but the new 1 sounded like a 4. Yeah, I think it starts 1. I don't think it's straight 4s. Again, I'm really bad at time signatures, as you folks will notice. That's okay. We can still work with it. But let me see. Okay, that's on. Don't overdub my voice. We don't want that. Edward says you could do a hat line and use that as a metronome or something. That's what I was thinking. So actually, what's our BPM? That'd be a good thing to know. 87. Okay. 87.8. 88 beats per minute. Let's try and do it like this. Slightly off. What I can do using overdub is if I do a hat sound and then just choose what beat I cut off the loop, it'll re-loop it at that beat. So I can actually try and sync it up to the main rhythm just by trying to time it and make it so that it's repeating and in sync with the tempo. So that's what I'm trying to do here. We'll see if it works. I've never done this before. This is kind of like the metronome thing Edward's talking about. And we can actually go in and overdub additional hats around the one we've done, which might be the easiest way to do this. Again, this is something I've never tried before, so we're learning. And that's definitely off. Edward says, I just listened back to Under the Ground. It's pretty fast compared to this. Let's listen to the original. We can. Med says something's still off though. Yeah, the individual hat is not synced up, but I was trying to see what we could do to build off of that one and then add more around it. So hold on, let's stop stop this. I'll pull this up in VLC. Let's listen to the original. Oh, you're right, Edward. It is a lot faster. I didn't notice that. Well, how loud is this for you folks? Oh, there's a zip in there too. I didn't realize that was there the first time I listened to it. Okay, I'm going to keep this just in the background in case you need to reference it again. The sloppiness is definitely more noticeable when I listen to it at a loud volume, so that's a little embarrassing. But let's see. One thing we could do to fix the tempo, it doesn't need to be exact. We can up the tempo of the overall loop track we're working on and make it faster. I care more that it's a clean song as opposed to being a copy of the original. So let's see, if we go tap, put it up to like 100, what does that change? I think it's a little too fast. Maybe 90. Yeah, that's closer. We can leave it there. Now, again, the hats. That I just did randomly just to see what it would sound like. I think that sounds the closest of anything else we've done with this new track. And what do you folks think? Messing around with beat repeat, something we can potentially do later. Let me save this. We will see if I manage to delete my own work today. So with the hats now, it doesn't sound exactly like the original. So it doesn't have the exact same rhythm because the rhythm was kind of cutting in and out around the snares. It still sort of does that, just not in the same way. I'm inclined to leave the hat the way it is now. That's actually not bad. I think that sounds much better. And Sarla redeemed small Raku. All right. Sarla, per your recommendation yesterday, I added a stretch redeem. I don't really need it since I've only been sitting down for like 30 minutes, but it is now there. Okay, I think we have something functional we can move forward with. We can always tweak things on the fly too. Now let's figure out what we're going to do with the bass. In the original, Edward says, sounds good. I think you could fill in a few more places. Oh, on the hats? Yeah, I'm a little bit wary of trying to overdub more on that because I might screw the rhythm up. Maybe we'll come back to that later. So one thing I'm thinking about doing for a switch up to this one from the original is using beat repeat to do like these little rhythm skips, like a fill in between. And so it's going to be different. But we could do something like, and it applies to both the hat and the main percussion rhythm. That's all the way up. 50% is what I was doing before. All right, so for the bass, let's turn this off real quick. In the original, which I can just pull up here. The original had a throat bass line. It went and it was a throat bass line. Again, this was done before I had access to the instruments on the loop. We could do that again, and then I have to be really careful to make sure each texture on the bass is consistent and clean. Or we go and we try the instruments that we have here, like guitar to bass is what I'm thinking for that. Or we put them together. We do a throat bass recording, and then we add the guitar to bass under it to give it more low end. So it's going to be a hybrid of both. So we could try that and then just see what it sounds like. And we can overdub it onto one bass track. That'll be track number 3. So if we have the original, the rhythm, now I got to think about how much of it. That's essentially 2 measures, 3 measures, 4 measures. The bass is more measures than the rhythm because the rhythm is just 2 repeats essentially. So let's see. Make sure I don't get too close for this. So we can go. Actually, I put an extra snare in there. I just want the bass line. Oh, that's tricky. That's really tricky because I'm used to having to do all the instruments at once. I just want it to go. I don't want any kicks, in fact. That's what's causing a problem too. I want. How do I want to do that? Do I want to hum it? Okay. All right. So it's gonna be kind of a sharp note. Okay. I didn't anticipate recording this particular track again would be this difficult. But that's a good challenge. All right, let me see if I can get the entire bass line and get it to loop cleanly. Oh, another problem is the original had the kicks double up when the rhythm goes down. So it went and the kicks followed the rhythm when it goes down. Ah, yes, Red Dragon. Thank you for reminding me. I can now embiggen myself. That's good. Okay. So now I don't have the kick as a transition for the thing going lower. So let me think about that. I think I could still make the transition, but the kicks don't follow it now. So now it's gonna sound a little bit different. Ooh, that is tricky. Let's see if we can get it to work. That's close. All right, that's close. Let's try something else. I'm gonna leave that there, and I'm gonna try guitar to bass on a separate track, and then if it works, maybe I can record them together. So I'm gonna turn guitar to bass on, try and do the same rhythm, and then we'll see if it works. All right, let me turn that back on so I can talk again. So, Let me adjust the volume a little bit there. Okay, so the guitar to bass definitely sounds more like an instrument as opposed to me humming. I had to redo it a couple times because instead of doing like a hum, I had to kind of go like an That's how I got it to sound, and it sounds better that way, I think. Now, does it sync properly is the question. Okay, good. It is synced to the beat. Let us save that before I mistakenly delete my own work again. Now, what happens if we compare it, we add it to the throat bass ones? Because I have them recorded separately, so they're both here on the track. Well, the rhythm is the same. I didn't think I'd be dead on with the rhythm. I thought they would be slightly off. In fact, if we drop the the balance down on the throat bass one so it's a little bit softer, it sounds like the guitar to bass one has distortion on it, which is what I wanted. And it doesn't just sound like I'm grunting into the mic. Okay, I like the way that sounds a lot better, in fact. But it does mean two of our tracks are taken up by bass, which is okay. Okay, so this is what the new sort of track with everything playing at once. This is 4 out of 5 total tracks captured with loop stuff. And I think it actually sounds pretty cohesive. So let's think about how the song would be played from the beginning for the first part, trying to match up the original, which starts with the rhythm. So the rhythm starts by itself, so it comes in like this. One thing I don't have the ability to do with the way I recorded this is to have just the kicks by itself, because they're all recorded on the same as the snare. Edward says, hats sound a bit loud compared to the other drums. Yeah, I'm going to drop the fader down on those a bit. In fact, what's my track volume at? Yeah, let's put this down to 990. So we have we have the rhythm start, and then everything else comes in after that. And then we have kind of the bass line as the prominent sound, which is fine. That's the way I want. Red Dragon says, going to bed now. Hope you all enjoy the rest of the stream. All right. Thanks, Red Dragon. Thanks for tuning in. I hope you have a restful night's sleep, and I will catch you later. So the original Under the Ground has the rhythm kind of cut in and out. We can't just have the individual parts of the rhythm because, again, snare and kick are on the same track. But we can have it drop out, and then we just have the hats and then the bass line, or just the bass line. We can cut both out like that. Can you bring it back? Now, so here's what I want to do for the remix, and we can play around with different sort of options here and permutations. Because the original Under the Ground has no like first half and second half, it's just one string and it's repeated the whole 2 times. I want to play around with the rhythm using something like beat repeat and do like kind of a faster kick breakdown on the rhythm and the hats, but the bass line stays the same. So it'd sound like and then maybe we have this go for a few bars and then click off. And I think that'd be a really cool switch up for the track. Or we can do it in halves too. I'll think about what I want to do for that. So like I mentioned before with beat repeat, where we start the repeat, it depends on where in the song we're capturing. So if I do it after the kicks, that's why we're getting that constant kick, which is the effect I wanted. But if we do it after the snare, we get constant snares. So that's the difference, which doesn't sound as good. And one thing, the RC505 Loop Station Mark II, the new model that's currently out, one thing it does that is an incredibly powerful tool is you can take individual loop tracks that you have running and you can bounce one over to another and merge them. Essentially, it's taking one and combining them and merging them, and it just overdubs them into one track. I really wish I could do that because I would take the bass lines and merge them. There's no way to do that on the Mark I. You have everything separate or you have to record them at once. At some point in the future, once I figure out or learn to master the Mark I do want to get a Mark II, but I'm not there. I still have to learn all the stuff that the Mark I does. But the Mark II is incredibly powerful. Like, it has synthesizer and vocoder effects and sequencer effects that are just built in. If you want to have like a synth sequencer effect on this one, you have to do it manually, and it's pretty tricky. All right. So I guess the real question I'm gonna have to think about between now and when I do the actual recording for this is how much I want this alternate rhythm to kick in. We will have to figure that out later. But I do like the switch up. I think that builds and makes the original a lot more interesting. If we really want to make it stressful, we can go to eighth notes. That doesn't sync up as well, though. It sounds like the bass is lagging behind the rhythm. So I think I'm going to keep it there. All right. So let me save all that. I think that will do it for the remix of Under the Ground. That has all the basic components I want to work with. Maybe I will, like Edward said earlier, I could try and add a little bit more to the hat run if I can do it without screwing up the rhythm. But all of the components are there, so in the future I will sit down and figure out how much of each section I want to do for the remix. But that took a lot more effort than I thought it would. I figured since it's such a kind of basic and simple song and rhythm, it'd be easy to just replicate, but turns out I chose a really weird time signature and rhythm tempo for the very first BGM track I ever did. But that's why it's an experiment. So before we wrap up for the day, I want to try this exercise with one more old BGM track. And unfortunately, it's not going to be easier. In fact, it may actually be more difficult. But I want to try and remix Super Bossa Nova. And Super Bossa Nova, I think I did this one on stream, but I don't think I did it with a loop. Because I remember Edward named it. He's the one who came up with the title, but I think I was just coming up with the actual rhythms and the beats, and I said I'm going to turn this into a BGM track by looping it or recording it. I don't think I did this one on a loop. So what we'll do is we'll save into a new track, and Edward says, now that I think about it, it might actually be an odd time signature. It has to be, because if it was a straight 4/4 on Under the Ground, it'd be so easy for us to just play around with. And I didn't choose a straightforward time signature, and I think that's why it's so weird. I should send it to my beatbox teacher and see if he can listen to it and tell me what time signature it's in. Probably like 3/7 or something stupid like that. But let's see. I'm gonna play Super Bossa Nova for you folks, and then we're going to try and give the exact same treatment. We're going to hold on, let me clear this. We're going to remix it and try and come up with a bit more fleshed out song in the rest of our time here. All right. Hold on, and just checking on my time frame here. Let me grab the track, and we will go do a quick listen through. Again, this is the second of the BGM tracks, and this is Super Bossa Nova. Edward says I counted 15 beats in the loop, a 7, then an 8. Well, that explains why it's so weird to track. Now, I don't know what the time signature of this one is. Like a Bossa Nova swing tempo. Is it 5/4? 4/5? Again, I'm really bad at counting time signatures. This one's definitely slower than the other one, but I'll minimize that for now. For Super Bossa Nova, what is that? That's not straight 4s. Again, I'm really bad with that. I'm sure Edward can tell me since he's my resident music theory guy. But we want to try and redo this one with some cleaner instruments, and then I have a couple ideas on how to handle several different sections. And what I was thinking about doing, I don't know if this is going to work with this, because already these remix projects are turning out to be a little more complex than I thought they would be. I was thinking about adding a trumpet, but we'll try and get the basic components down first. Fortunately, this one, rhythm-wise or instrument-wise, there's not a lot to this one. It's just an unusual rhythm. It's just kicks and clicks. So the rhythm itself goes. Now, this one's a lot slower, so I need to make sure I don't speed this one up. So let's see if we can get the rhythm recorded, and then we'll start playing around with stuff. So let's see. Let me try and loop that maybe a millisecond closer. think it's still late. I think it's late by a millisecond. There, that's better. I don't know about you folks, but that sounds better to me. What if we layer another lower click, like a... No, I don't want to do a hollow click. I'm going to try and layer another click on, and we'll see if it makes it too strong. I think I've already recorded this at a higher BPM than the other one too. I'm going to fix that. I don't want to make these noticeably faster or slower than the originals. Let me slow it down a little bit. Yeah, it's better. I just realized the clicks are peaking pretty high because they're a sharper sound, looks like. Hopefully that doesn't sound too loud in your speakers or headphones. But I do like the sound of the layered higher and lower clicks. It makes it sound more like... It makes it sound more like an instrument being used as opposed to someone just clicking their tongue. And it's consistent. So before we do anything else, I'm saving that. So here's an idea that I want to experiment with right now. In the original Super Bossa Nova, the rhythm cuts out and there's a real click fill. It goes like... And then it comes back in with the rhythm. We can't really do that on a loop, but what I can do is record the fill and then turn it into a one shot. So basically when we're doing the song, we can manually fade out the rhythm and then hit the one shot fill and then cut the rhythm back on and then go from there. So what I mean by that is if we record, let's say we go, let's see, I don't want to do just a straight copy. It was before. What if we did, so in fact, the rhythm doesn't matter because it's going to be empty. This will be by itself. Let's see if we did. Okay, that's what it sounds like on loop. We stop, we go edit, and turn on one shot. Now, if I hit the button one time, it sounds like... So here's what I'm talking about. We play the rhythm. And if we want to cut it out and then have the fill, do something like this. We just stop the main rhythm, we play the one shot fill, and then we start the rhythm back up again, and we cut in and out that way. We could play it at the same time, but it's going to sound really weird. Edward says, sounds a bit like The Lick. Why does that sound familiar? I think I've heard that before. I don't think you sent that to me. Did you? in doing super bossa nova, because I do like bossa nova tempos, my biggest thing was like, don't just recreate the girl from Ipanema. Just don't do that. Because you totally could. If you had the thing going, you're like, that's a little faster than the rhythm, but you could totally do something like that. I was like, don't just do that, or I'm gonna get in trouble. But let's see if we can get the bass in here. Maybe if we're feeling really adventurous, we can try and put a trumpet rhythm in here. Because I think that'd be fun, but we'll have to see how it syncs up with the rest of the notes. A trumpet melody, not rhythm. Well, let's do guitar to bass. And it's just gonna go. But we're gonna have the low end kind of electric bass boosting up the bottom instead of it just being me singing. So let's see. I'm gonna turn that on and we'll see if we can get to work. All right. Edward asks, can you add more one shots so there's different fills? Absolutely. If we don't use more than 3 total tracks, we have one more. We can add another one shot so that we can have a completely different fill. We can go like, if we really wanted to. So yeah, that's a good idea. All right, so I think the bass got captured accurately. Let's save that. One thing I was not remembering to do is setting my mic sensitivity, because I'm adjusting it when I do things like guitar to bass. So I think I have it where it should be now. So interesting. I think the bass is fine. What we could do is try and do a different fill, since I think the only thing I want to try and do to this song is maybe add a trumpet melody. So we can put that on track 3. But for 4, if our original fill sounds like, what if we did a slower one that's just like, maybe, and then it goes back in like that. So and if we go one shot, now it sounds like, we can even chain it together with our other one if we really wanted to do that. So if we went, We might have to time the slower one a little bit differently, but if we just went, so there's a lot of options there. I like the idea of having different fills in different sections, so that maybe it denotes when the track is going to change. So I think we have a pretty good basic structure for Super Bossa Nova. In fact, that one was a lot easier to do than Under the Ground. We're not done yet, but getting the basic structure together was way easier, and it seems like a weirder rhythm. I don't know. We ever figure out what this is? I don't think it's straight 4. It's roughly the same tempo as the original. Might be a little faster, but I mean 10% faster. But let's see what else we can add. Like I said, I really wanted to do a trumpet melody just because I haven't done that on a track in a bit. I was kind of thinking about maybe it's taking a page from, I think, Super Mario 3, one of the levels, one of the tropical levels. It has this rhythm that goes like, it goes, let's see. Something like that. Edward says, I'm counting 4-4. All right, we'll call it 4-4. That's fine. But I was thinking, if we can get it in the right key, just like a real simple descending trumpet line that goes down and then back up on the last note. But I don't know how well that's going to mesh with the bass line. We could try it, though. If it sounds like garbage, we just delete it. What I was thinking was just having a higher descending progression from the beginning. And I think I have to slowly stagger it a little bit more so it's not faster than the actual bass line. But I wonder. 1, 2, 3, 4 notes. You know, that actually doesn't sound terrible. It would be better if there was 4 notes 1 octave lower, or like 1 step lower, which is, I think that's pretty similar to what the Mario theme sounds like. So it'd be like, something like that. Or Fairy Fountain kind of does something similar too. Now, can I get that to record properly is the question. In fact, I don't need the bass line. I just need the regular rhythm. Let's see. So there's no break. It's constant, but it goes down, half step, and then back up, and then from there down, and like a half step back up at the end. So let's see. Too bad I kind of missed the first note. think I actually liked it better when there was just four notes and not going down a second time. Unless it went for a repeat. So it goes 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, and then it goes down. I wonder what that would sound like. Let's see. So 2 and 2, that's actually really close to what the Fairy Fountain Melody does, now that I think about it. We could also try and do an octave version of the bass line with a trumpet. So it's the same melody, it's just going to be higher up. So was it for maybe 2 octaves higher? Let's try it from the beginning. Well, I gotta think about where that is. That's where it starts. That is actually really difficult for me to place because I don't have perfect pitch at all. I have horrible pitch. In fact, if I was doing this on a keyboard, I could place where it is easily by octaving. We could also record. Actually, we could transpose. That's cheating a little bit. I could record the trumpet melody at the same notes as the bass line, and then just use transpose to step it up 1 octave. That's another thing I could do. What happens if we transpose just the bass line? What does that sound like? That's 12 steps. Well, it doesn't sound clean because of the distortion on the bass, so we definitely don't want to do that. That's funny. If I turn on beat scatter at 75% with this pattern, that is interesting how it plays with the rhythm. I don't think I'd want to do that for the track though. Now, if we did the exact same thing that we did with Under the Ground, where we beat repeat one section to give it a faster count or faster tempo, I wouldn't do that for this one because it's just going to be the exact same effect. But it is kind of interesting how if you do that at 50% with this effect, it puts it into like a straight fours, like a straight kick line. and it syncs fine. It actually doesn't sound bad, but we did that on the other one, so I'm not doing that for this. The way I'm gonna have to record this, now that I'm thinking about it, is I'm gonna have to record the fill, and then I may have to move it around if I don't hit the button exactly on time and bring the rhythm back in. But that's fine, the rhythm and the bass line, because I can play around with that in my editing software and move it where it needs to be. I still might try and figure out if I can get something with the trumpet to work. I don't want to do the second lower step sequence. That didn't sound really good to me. But maybe we do just the single and I try and find a way to loop it in. I don't know. What do you folks think about having the trumpet? Yeah, if I'm gonna do that, I'm gonna just have one progression. I just don't know how much I want it to loop. We could do it continuous. If we wanted to do like a kind of sequenced trumpet rhythm, which I don't know if anyone does because it would sound kind of weird. But if we wanted to do like an ascending rhythm, like a, that's really easy because you just record the 3 and then you loop it instantly. So you do, oh, I got the button. And you can even layer like a lower version if you want to harmonize something, which I'm not terribly good at. That is a really bad example of how to do that. I did that just to demonstrate what it would sound like, but it doesn't sound offensive to me. The weird thing about that trumpet rhythm, that sequence that repeats, it starts to sound like it has different notes after you hear it 3 times or so. And that's a really weird effect. Like it sounds like it's coming in a half step lower, even though it's not changing. It's just the same thing looped over and over again. This is what it sounds like if you put the beat repeat on in that section. Kind of sounds like a bike horn, doesn't it? Or like a clown horn. Oh, where's Pink when I need them? Okay, now that is a really interesting effect. I just thought to try. If I turn on reverse, because it's the same rhythm and there's no front end or back end extra beats that would cause it to sound differently, it's just flipping the notes around and doing it in reverse. Now, I'm not saying I'm going to keep this in the song, but I really think it's interesting how you can switch the way the rhythm works just by reversing it. Edward says, I'm actually not sure what to think about this trumpet line. That's fine. We're just experimenting. If I toggle reverse on and off, the horn starts freaking out, which is also kind of funny. I'm just more impressed I managed to get the notes cleanly in the first pass on that trumpet. Usually it takes me a few tries. You know what? If I throw on filter and sort of mess with the distortion so that the rhythm sort of gets fuzzed out a little bit, this doesn't sound bad, alright? Whether or not you like the melody that I put in for the trumpet line, I think this doesn't sound bad. Maybe the trumpet needed to be spread out a little bit, but as a looping melody, I actually don't think this sounds bad. I don't know, I'm gonna have to sleep on this and revisit this later, but I think we can potentially use the trumpet as an effect. Maybe not through the whole song. I think it get kind of obnoxious through the whole song, but I don't know. I don't want to just delete it. I want to make it work, and I think I like this sequence version better than the sustained one I did earlier. I don't know. I'm gonna think about that. Another thing you can do that's kind of fun is by just playing with the volume faders and cutting it in and out. For something that's looping constantly, you can mess with what parts you're hearing and changes the rhythm too. More research is necessary. But if we go back to the point of remixing the original, I think these two tracks sound fine. They sound much better than the original Super Bossa Nova as far as cleanliness and consistency in the rhythm. And I do like how the bass line is more kind of smoothed over and doesn't quite sound as rough, as it were, because it was just hummed before, it was just me singing. And then I will think about what to do with the fills. Maybe I will mess around with the second one. Maybe condense it down a little bit so it's not quite as drawn out. But but the first one works fine. All right, I'm going to save this. Overall, very, very interesting experiment today with these old tracks. I don't know where I'm going to put these. Maybe they will be in the second BGM pack. If I can get up-to-date recordings of Under the Ground and Super Bossa Nova, and I put BGM pack 1 up on Spotify, the first 2 tracks are going to be the modern versions. I'll just denote them as like, you know, remix version, or maybe I'll give it a fun name like Crazy B Remix or something. That way people will know that it's different from the original. But considering the qualities would be a lot better than the originals, I'm not going to put the originals up. That'll just be something that you folks can download and listen to from SoundCloud, or not SoundCloud, Bandcamp. But I think that will do it for today. Let me take a look at my list of friends. Let's go see if we can find someone to raid, and then we will wrap up for the day today. Let me pull up my list of homies. It doesn't look like anybody is live. I am streaming a little bit earlier on a Sunday, and that's all right. Boy, I need to take a look at the bot list. I can't even tell, but there's a lot of names in there. Let's see. Edward, do you have a VTuber or someone cool that you know that we can potentially raid? If not, that's fine. We don't need to raid someone every time, but if you know someone who's on now that's cool that we can go ahead and visit and say hi to, that's fine. Your recommendations are pretty solid. Eris von Jabberwock. I have never heard of this person. The greatest penguin heist of all time. Okay, we can go raid this person. Sounds like a plan. All right, for that we will go to outro. And once again, thanks for hanging out today, folks. This is a pretty interesting experiment. Hopefully it was interesting watching me try and remix old songs that were actually more complicated than we thought. But we will wrap up for today. I will be figuring out my schedule. It might go up kind of late because I'm going to be out for a bit. But I think we will be doing Wednesday, Thursday, Saturday next week. I've not decided yet, since tomorrow is a holiday. But the stream schedule will go up, so we will get back together some point next week. So once again, thanks for hanging out today, and I will catch you folks in the next stream. Have yourselves a good evening.